I'm a simple man. I make a living by operating a bulldozer. It's an honest living, and I've provided well for my wife, Marcy, and our two sons, 15-year-old Jason and 16-year-old Troy. We have a modest house, almost paid off, and enough money in the bank for the boys to go to college. Marcy and I have been married for 18 good years, or at least I thought so. I seemed to age gracefully, gained a bit of weight, lost some hair, and gained a few wrinkles. My job keeps me in decent shape, but my hands are a bit calloused and rough. Marcy, on the other hand, has aged very well. Her body seemed to fill out with age, and her hairstyle and overall appearance made her stand out. I was very proud that she became my wife. She dressed well and knew how to take care of herself for maximum effect. So why am I doubting the state of my marriage? I guess, like most guys, I became confident and content with how things were. I thought if I was happy, then Marcy must be too. I never sought trouble, and I never had any reason to suspect anything. I'm trusting by nature, and I guess that made me a bit naive. For the past 6 months or so, it seems like Wednesday dinners have been tastier than usual. I didn't know why, and at first, it didn't seem unusual. Marcy was always in a cheerful mood and seemed happy to make a special occasion for the family, and we all enjoyed it. Then I also noticed that on Wednesdays, she was always dressed more casually than usual. She would wear sweatpants or some leisure wear, not the outfit she wore when leaving the house. Every other evening of the week, she would wear her usual clothes until bedtime. By the time Wednesday dinner came around, she would have changed. I'm not one to dig into the laundry basket. At the end of the day, I just toss my dirty clothes in there and move on. Tonight, I just needed to look a little deeper. I didn't even know Marcy had black lingerie. God knows, I never saw her wear it. There it was, lying at the bottom of the basket beneath damp towels. It looked like the towels were strategically placed to cover them. She must have been confident that I would never look there. She knew me pretty well. Maybe I should have picked them up and checked, who knows for what, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wondered if it was all connected. The delicious food on Wednesdays, the early change of clothes, the new fashionable lingerie. Sometimes I regretted not being such a simple, trusting fool. Since, apparently, this had been going on for about 6 months, I felt it was time to delve into it a little further. If she was doing something behind my back, she was pretty cautious about it. My company issued each of us a portable GPS to track the location of the equipment. The next Wednesday, before heading to work, I turned it on and placed it on the floor beneath the driver's seat in Marcy's Volvo. The batteries were supposed to last for 14 hours. It was hard for me to focus at work. All day I thought about what I was going to find. After another great dinner, I felt confident that my plan would yield the results I was looking for but hoping not to get. Marcy didn't suspect anything when I left the house to run to the auto parts store. After installing new batteries in the GPS, I was on my way. The GPS first led me to a pharmacy a few miles from home and then straight to the airport. I managed to get within a meter of where she parked her car. You'd like these gadgets. Then the route led home, stopping at the grocery store along the way. Now I had to wait a whole agonizing week for the next move. On the way, I stopped at the auto parts store, and believe it or not, they were selling car door latches. When I returned home, everything was fine. Marcy and the kids were watching TV, and as always, it seemed like we were one big happy family. I took a shower and checked the laundry basket. At the bottom lay a set of light olive-colored silk lingerie. Before going downstairs to join the family, I peeked into her lingerie drawer. There, behind her everyday underwear, were several sets of fashionable items. They weren't new. I carefully closed the dresser drawer and went to sit with my loving wife. I had no trouble taking the day off the following Wednesday. I found a good spot at the back of the hotel parking lot where no one would notice me and settled in comfortably. A cooler with water and some snacks would suffice. I assumed she would come there after lunch, but I wasn't certain. Finally, after the 10th Sudoku puzzle, I noticed the Volvo pulling into the same spot as the week before. It just sat there for over 10 minutes until a silver cruiser parked about 7 meters away. He got out of the car and went up to room 121. As soon as he unlocked and opened the door, Marcy quickly approached and went inside. It took me less than 10 seconds to unlock his car door and another 10 to retrieve the license plate from the glove compartment. I couldn't decide whether to wait for them to come out or just leave. Since I was dying to get out of there, I left. Todd Marshall seemed to be in his 30s. He was good-looking and well-dressed. I could understand why he attracted Marcy. He had everything I wasn't and would never be. On the way home, I stopped by the address listed in the registration book. It was a small, modest house in a well-established neighborhood. It didn't look like a family home, and there were no signs of children nearby. It seemed he wouldn't have trouble with women his age or younger, and I couldn't understand why he wanted Marcy. I guess she was much more desirable than I thought. Now I didn't know what to do. On Sunday, the kids weren't home, and Marcy and I were relaxing with the newspaper. She seemed a bit tense and finally spoke up. "John," she began, "is something wrong? You seem a bit distant lately." I wanted to avoid answering her. I'm really bad at confrontation. "It's nothing."
Igusheim justired.
Working overtime to save up for the kids' college is starting to take its toll. You've always worked long hours. I thought you were used to it. Kind of, but then I worry about a lot of things. I worry that I'm not attentive enough to you. I worry that I'm not the best husband I could be. Making good money is important, but it's not everything. Are you happy? Of course, I'm happy. I have a wonderful home, 2 great kids, an amazing husband, and a new Volvo. What more could a woman want? For some reason, this angered me. I've never yelled at my wife or criticized her in any way, but hearing her tell me how everything was great while knowing she was cheating on me was too much. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. "John, what the hell is going on? What did I say that upset you?"
I'm sorry.
Was I that obvious? Yes. I've never seen you so upset. Are you sure there aren't other problems you'd like to talk about? I've always been here for you. How can I help? It was more than I could bear. The stupidity was that I blamed myself for everything. I didn't want this. I wanted things to be as they were. I wanted peace and tranquility. Why the hell did she start this conversation? I stood at the door and looked straight at her. "Just answer me one question, and answer it truthfully. As long as you answer truthfully, everything will be fine. If you lie or evade the question, I don't know what will happen. Understand?" "Of course, everything's fine. I've never lied to you, John. Why would I lie now? I've never doubted your loyalty, and I've always felt that you were honest and truthful in our relationship, but I have to ask about this." "Okay. Who are you meeting at the hotel every Wednesday and why?" Marcy stood there, staring at me with her mouth half open. It seemed the question shocked her. She was nervous and awkward. Her gaze darted around the floor and the room as if she were searching for an exit and knew there wasn't one. Finally, she spoke softly and slowly. "I don't know why you're asking me about these things after so many years together. I'm disappointed that you don't trust me and that you could even think such a thing." I stood and looked at her, waiting for a response, but none came. I guess that's the answer to my question. I will never bring up this topic again. I'm leaving for a while. Don't wait for me. She was silent as I walked out the door, but as I got into the car, she started shouting for me to come back inside and talk. I felt like drinking. Marcy was in bed when I finally returned home. She didn't move or make a sound as I lay down beside her. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. The boys didn't know anything was going on between us. Breakfast proceeded as usual, but quietly. I left for work without saying anything. Dinner that Wednesday was the same as before her affair. She was in regular clothes, and the food was tasty but not outstanding. I assumed she hadn't seen her lover that day. A quick check of the laundry basket seemed to confirm my suspicions. There was only regular cotton underwear there. I decided I needed to keep a better eye on what she was doing. Marcy had bought a cell phone about 6 months ago, but I hadn't. After a bit of looking around, I discovered I could call a certain number and check the call log on her mobile phone at any time, and it was updated within an hour. I never got to see the cell phone bills because Marcy received the mail and paid everything from our joint account. I also realized we had a limited number of friends, so I had no idea what she used the cell phone for. I always called from the landline, and so did the kids. Marcy used the landline too when she was home. Just in case, I bought my own prepaid cell phone. No bills, no contract, and it was cheap for what I needed it for. I could check her call log anytime, from anywhere. As you all may have guessed, 90% of her calls on her cell phone were to the same number. She called Todd 8 times, and he called her 6 times since I confronted her on Sunday. I was dying to know what they were talking about, but I had no idea how to go about it. Over the next 3 weeks, they continued to talk a couple of times a day, and then one Wednesday we had a great dinner. The black outfit was at the bottom of the laundry basket. I suppose you could already figure that out. The next Wednesday morning, the GPS was back in the car. Marcy wasn't planning on going to the hotel anymore. The GPS pointed straight to David Drive, 321, Todd Marshall's house. At least we had a good dinner that evening. I couldn't accuse her anymore of meeting someone at the hotel. I grabbed a couple of bottles of water, a sandwich, and a Sudoku book. Finally, I could use my mobile phone for something practical. I called for a taxi. It dropped me off at the bus stop near Todd's house. About 2 hours later, Marcy appeared. She parked the Volvo half a block from his house and went straight into the front door. I had a spare key to her precious car. It took me about 20 minutes to drive to the hotel and park the Volvo exactly where she had parked it a month ago. Just in case, I wiped it down and locked it before heading home. Marcy didn't know I would be home, and I watched twice as the silver cruiser drove past the house before dropping her off at the corner. My car was parked in the driveway, and I'm sure that caused them some concern. "What are you doing home, John?" "The bulldozer broke down around 2 o'clock, and they just told me to take the rest of the day off." "Well, I have bad news. I was at the shopping center, and the Volvo got stolen." "Was it locked?" "Yes, it was locked. I was only there for a short while, and when I came out, it was gone. I called the police and reported it immediately. I would have called you, but I didn't think you would be home." "What did you buy?" "Nothing. I was browsing TVs for Christmas. Anyway, it doesn't matter." "How did you get home?" "The police dropped me off." "Oh, I didn't see the car." She shot me an irritated glance and started up the stairs. "Marcy, how about I order pizza for dinner?" "That's fine." Guess where I found the red lace lingerie on Friday evening? When I returned home from work, the Volvo was in the garage. "I see you got your car back." "Yeah, they called earlier today." She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee cup in front of her. Her fingers gripped the handle of the cup as if she had an obsessive idea. She looked disheveled and tired. She refused to look at me or acknowledge my presence more than necessary. I went upstairs and took a shower. When I came down, she hadn't moved. I sat on the couch in the living room and picked up the newspaper while she placed the cup in the sink. She started up the stairs. "Where did they find the car?" I asked. I turned away from her so she couldn't see the smirk on my face. She paused for a moment, then continued up to the bedroom. It was a low blow on my part. I should never have said that. It was out of character for me and cruel. I always regretted it. That evening we ordered pizza again, and I explained to the boys that their mom wasn't feeling well. Wednesday dinners returned to normal, as did her attire. I tracked the phone calls, but there weren't any. She wasn't getting enough from that cell phone to justify its cost. As weeks passed without change, I began checking the call logs less and less. The situation between me and Marcy deteriorated to the point where we were just coexisting in the same house. There was no sex or intimacy, no goodnight kisses or morning farewells. Our conversations were limited to what was necessary for functioning. It was a terrible time, but it was bound to come to an end. I conducted my usual check of her mobile phone usage, and then, about 3 months later, I accidentally checked it again and found new phone calls. I was crushed. I didn't expect the situation to improve, but I hoped it wouldn't get worse. He contacted her first, and then there were several exchanges of calls in a short period of time. I prayed it would never come to this, but my prayers went unanswered. I noticed a slight change in her mood and realized she was up to something sinister. I returned to checking the phone activity daily. Todd Marshall worked at the local Chrysler dealer. On Wednesday morning, I wandered into the showroom, knowing he wouldn't be there. I found out that Todd had every Wednesday off. Pretending to browse cars, I walked down the hallway toward the restrooms and the employee break room. In the lobby, there was a display case with bowling trophies. There was a photo of Todd with the rest of the bowling team. One of the salesmen came out of the room. "Wow, guys, you've got an impressive collection here," I said, trying to sound casual. "We're not much into softball. so this makes up for it. Where does your team bowl? Crystal Lanes in Elkmont every Friday night. Are you interested in a specific car? I spent a few more minutes browsing the showroom before heading to Crystal Lanes. The main building was a long steel structure set perpendicular to the road. Along one side was a parking lot, surrounded by a row of trees and shrubs. The lighting in the parking lot seemed a bit sparse, which suited my plans. I went inside and checked the league bowling schedule, which was prominently displayed. On Friday evening, the boys had a school football match. Marcy didn't like going to the games, and she wasn't eager to go with me anyway. This gave me a reason to leave the house. Marcy was sitting at the kitchen table when I came down for a late breakfast. Her eyes were red and swollen. It was clear that she had been crying quite a bit. When I entered the room, she looked at me with a hatred I had never seen before. She didn't say anything. As I made coffee, she left the room and went upstairs. I sat down and reached for the newspaper that was in front of her. The police found Todd Marshall's body in the Crystal Lanes parking lot last night. It appears he was the victim of a brutal robbery as he was leaving the bowling alley after a league game. His wallet was found in a dumpster a block away from the crime scene. Money and credit cards were missing from the wallet. At the moment, the police have no leads or suspects. His watch and credit cards went down the storm drain, and I doubt they'll ever resurface. The timing was perfect. I showed up for the boys' football game when it started and was there when it ended. I drove the boys to the game and back. I felt sorry for Marcy, but I felt nothing for Todd. Marcy cried in the bedroom all day. I didn't try to talk to her or console her. If I faced her, she wouldn't be able to explain why she was crying without giving herself away. I didn't want to mess up like last time. That night, I slept on the couch. Marcy, as usual, prepared Sunday breakfast. She looked fresh and rested, but she was gloomy and sluggish. She hadn't done anything wrong, but she wasn't the same cheerful person anymore. She politely asked the boys about the football game and apologized for not being able to attend. There was no eye contact between us. I didn't insist. We spent most of the day with the boys, mowing, raking, and trimming. Lunch and dinner were tense for me, but the boys seemed not to notice. That night, I tried to fall asleep in bed, but ended up on the couch again. Inside Todd's wallet was a small photo of Marcy standing in the room naked. Her breasts and dark pubic area were visible, and she had a wide smile on her face as she posed for it. It wasn't pornography, just sexual. She looked very pretty in the photo, except that it wasn't intended for my viewing. I placed the photo in the drawer with her lingerie beneath her sexy items. Our life continued as normal as possible. Marcy did everything she usually did, but it seemed like she spent more time on each task. She was constantly organizing and rearranging things. The dishes were tasty, but never reached the level of Wednesday specials. Once, I checked the lingerie drawer. The photo and the special lingerie were gone. She never said anything about the photo. I don't know what happened to all of it. That week, the house at David Drive, 321, was put up for sale by Todd's brother. It took some time, but I finally managed to persuade the bank to allow me to make mortgage payments only under my name, and then I started renting it out. We never talked about what happened. If we didn't talk about it, we could pretend it never happened. We were both deceiving ourselves. Once, during a lull in our non-conversation, she turned to me. "John, do you think we should consider getting a divorce?" It was a serious question, and something like it had never been brought up before.
No.
Not yet. Wait until both boys finish high school, and then everything will be fine. She seemed to smile, as if the option I offered her was better than nothing at all. I left everything as it was. Time passed, and everything remained more or less the same. Marcy became more and more like someone obsessed, living in her own world. The boys and I didn't confront her. I think they knew something was going on, but they denied it, just like Marcy and I did. Although we slept in the same bed, there was no sex. We tolerated each other for some inexplicable reason. Trey graduated from high school and went to the University of Pennsylvania. I decided it was time to meet with a lawyer. On the day Jason left for college, I found Marcy at the kitchen table, reading advertisements. "Are you looking for something specific?" "I think I need to find a place to live." "Don't worry, I'm giving you the house. It will be paid off, and you'll receive ownership rights in your name for free. You'll also receive $4,000 from the current account and $17,000 from the savings account. You can keep the house or sell it. It's up to you. If you decide to keep it, you better start looking for a job. Also, you need to transfer the utility bills to your name by the end of the month." She looked at me in amazement. I don't think she expected what I proposed. "Here are the papers. Sign them, and everything will be settled within 60 days. You can have a lawyer review them if you want." Marcy grabbed a pen from the kitchen drawer and signed both documents without reading a word. She handed them back to me. The short-term tenants vacated Todd's old house, and I gradually moved my things there over the past few weeks. I bought the house furnished, as Todd left it. All I needed to do was transfer my personal belongings and acquire a few new small appliances. The last items from the dresser drawers and closet were quickly thrown into several black garbage bags to be moved to my new place. Marcy sat at the kitchen table, watching as I loaded and unloaded the truck. When I finally finished, I leaned in and gently kissed her on the cheek. I said goodbye, and she smiled with tears in her eyes. The next year flew by quickly. After the divorce was finalized, Marcy put the house up for sale. It sold quickly. Both boys did well in school. I was glad I had prepaid for their education. I settled into the new house. I no longer saw or spoke to Marcy. I don't know where she moved, but once or twice a month, I see her Volvo slowly passing by the house on David Drive. I don't know if she thinks about me or Todd. Marcy never apologized for what happened. She never apologized and never gave me any explanations. I never asked. They never found out who killed Todd Marshall. One of the accounting staff at work invited me to her house for dinner on Friday night. I think I'll go.